What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Terminal Topics Podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and this is my review of NXT, which took place January 23rd. Overall, great show. Just a week and a half out from NXT Vengeance Day, taking place Sunday, February 4th. Found out through the duration of the show a couple of matches that were, in fact, made official, which we'll get to throughout the course of this review. So things are shaping up. Of course, we have one more episode of NXT next Tuesday, where we will get the other semifinal for the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, that being Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams going up against LWO's Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro. Winner of that will then, of course, go up against Bron Breakker and Baron Corbin at Vengeance Day. So without further ado, let's get to the very first match of NXT this past week, which in fact was Bron Breakker and Baron Corbin in that semifinal of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, going up against Axiom and Nathan Frazer. Two different styles. We already know this, as I mentioned last week on my NXT review. We got some "This is awesome" chants throughout this match. After repeated kickouts by both Axiom and Nathan Frazer, you could not keep them down. A couple of close near falls, as I mentioned. And Frazer, at one point towards the end, super kicked Baron Corbin. But then as soon as he got out of the way, a vicious spear, which Bron Breakker, you could argue, has the best spear in the business right now, without a shadow of a doubt. Never mind Roman Reigns and Edge or Adam Copeland and AEW and so on. Bron Breakker's spear is something beautiful. So Bron Breakker nearly speared Nathan Frazer through the ropes, it seemed, for the 1, 2, 3, again, heading to Vengeance Day for the finals. And then we'll see. Will it be against the LWO, or will it be Trick and Mellow Gang? We'll find that out next Tuesday. Now, following this, we had Josh Briggs. He's got this new edge to him. Ever since JBL confronted him last week backstage, letting him know, show the world what you're made of, kid. You're no longer with Brooks Jensen, Fallon Henley, that whole group, and tag team and little faction they had, which was good for the time being, the last 2+ years. But now it's time for him to venture out on his own. And quite honestly, I said this many moons ago, I've been waiting for this day. I've been waiting for Josh Briggs to have this chip on his shoulder, to be in singles action. And here we are. So anyway, Josh Briggs, Ilya Dragunov, the NXT champion, of course, had a confrontation backstage. Briggs accused Dragunov of underhanded dealings to keep his title while he's basically rehabbing and getting better, hopefully for Vengeance Day, where he's set to face Trick Williams, defending that NXT championship. And, Trick Williams, of course, having to potentially pull double duty at Vengeance Day if Trick and Carmelo do defeat the LWO next week. Again, they'll be in that Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic final against Bron and Baron. Then, of course, he would have to fight Dragunov later in the night. Was presumed to be the main event for that NXT championship. So during this, Trick rolled up. He talked some sense into Ilya Dragunov and said, don't listen to Josh Briggs. Josh, of course, wanted a match against Ilya Dragunov on this episode of NXT. And, that was pretty much that. And Josh Briggs responded to Trick Williams by saying, look, we all know after Ilya Dragunov, takes care of you at Vengeance Day, you're just going to slip into Carmelo's pocket. And that be that. They had some, a war of words for a little bit. And then Josh Briggs left. And Williams then goes on to tell Ilya Dragunov he'll see him at Vengeance Day. And Dragunov said he'll be there. But he's not so sure that Trick will be, because later in the night, what was pretty much it was the final match of the night. We saw Trick Williams go up against Josh Briggs. Pretty good contest, which we'll get to towards the end of this review. After that, we saw Wren Sinclair. As we all know, last week we got to finally see her on NXT TV, formerly known as Maddie Renkowski. And Wren Sinclair, she was preparing for her first singles match on NXT, approached by Fallon Henley. Fallon Henley helped calm her nerves. She was getting pretty worked up. Hey, it's my first singles bout on television here in NXT. This was just a pipe dream a few weeks ago. I just got signed. And Fallon Henley said, you're going to do great tonight. You're going up against Lash Legend. You eliminated her last week in that 20 women battle royale for the #1 contendership for the NXT Women's Championship, and you're going to get it done. So don't worry. So that made Wren feel a little bit better for the time being. Then we get to see Metaphor make their entrance, of course. Noam Dar, the Heritage Cup champion, Oro Mensah, Jakara Jackson, and of course, Lash Legend was suited up for action here, going up against Wren Sinclair. Now, this was a pretty brief match. I did think this was going to go a little longer. Not surprised at the outcome. Again, it's Wren Sinclair's debut match on NXT. And, Lash Legend was just getting her back for eliminating her last week. And to simply put, Lash gets the victory. It was, again, a brief match. I thought there was going to be some tension teased between Lash Legend and her former or current stablemate, Chikara Jackson, being that Chikara Jackson was knocked off the apron by Lash. It was inadvertently. Wren had gotten out of the way. Lash knocked Chikara off, but post-match, Chikara got in the ring with the rest of the group, rest of the Metaphor, and all was good. So I thought we were going to see some tensions teased there. However, that was not the case. Now, post-match, they were beating on Wren Sinclair. Then we got to see her ally, Fallon Henley, make her way out, came to her aid, and, made Chikara and Lash and so on flee the scene, leave the ring. And so it's good to see that, Wren Sinclair has a friend in need, being new to the roster in the women's division on NXT, and Fallon Henley is there for her. So I'm sure we'll see a tag team match between those four women in the near future. I do believe next week Fallon Henley is set for a match. I'm not sure if it's against Chikara, probably Lash Legend, but I do believe we saw that graphic throughout the course of this show. So coming back from a commercial break here, we have Ava Raine, now just known as Ava, I believe. I think they dropped the last name a few months back, the Rock's daughter. But she makes her way out of the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels' office, and followed by her coming out of there, actually, is William Regal. Makes his return, his long-awaited return. He came back to WWE a year ago, but there was a stipulation, being that he was employed with AEW for a little bit prior to, that he was not allowed to be on television, on WWE television, for at least 1 year. So here he is. He's able to be on TV yet again. Great seeing the former NXT GM. And speaking of which, William Regal speaks to Ava in a brief segment backstage and lets Ava know, like, this is a big role you're about to have here, and becoming the youngest GM for NXT at the age of 22, I believe she is. And big shoes to fill, but I think I can do it, says Ava. So we'll see what happens. All the best to her. We've seen her for the better part of a month and a half now on NXT, making her way out of Shawn Michaels' office at one point or another. And we pretty much assumed that, she was a little bit more than just a messenger. But I didn't necessarily think she was going to be the next NXT general manager. So good for her. I believe the last GM we had in NXT, I want to say, was the better part of 2 years ago, maybe. Because, of course, William Regal was the GM forever in NXT. And then Samoa Joe had a brief stint. Now, ironically enough, Samoa Joe is the AEW World's Champion over there. So what a stark contrast from being just an NXT GM to the World Champion of another promotion. But good for Joe. And now Ava, right? Ava is now the GM on NXT. So we'll see how that goes. We got to see her later in the night for the NXT Women's contract signing, which was good. The repetitions, she'll be good. She's definitely getting there. She's becoming more confident in all that she has to say and do. So good for her. Now, following that, we had a segment where Out the Mud threaten and take out the family's leading lady, which is Adriana Rizzo. It looked like they were at an Italian restaurant of some sort. Of course, being the family, Tony D and Stacks. Tony D and Stacks were not there. It looked like there was just the owner of a restaurant, that Italian restaurant, and Rizzo were there getting attacked by OTM and Jada Parker and so on. So we see both groups later in the night, which we'll get to, but that was just a little pre-tape segment there. Now, following that, we had a very frustrated and on a mission Elektra Lopez, which I was loving. Now that she's no longer by the side of Lola Vice, she was looking for her former friend, was asking around for her numerous times throughout the course of this show. And until she got to her, I mean, their segment was great, namely Elektra Lopez, who basically did the brunt of the talking. But we'll get to that in just a little bit. So now here we had Joe Gacy going up against DIJAK. Now, Gacy attacked DIJAK while making his way to the ring. These guys are nuts. They're putting one another through desks, commentary tables, the whole set. Joe Gacy went through it, you name it. I don't believe the match ever officially began. Would not be surprised to see these two have some kind of a no-holds-barred contest on Vengeance Day. I'd be here for it. Ever since DIJAK returned to NXT a little over a year ago, he's done fantastic. Although I don't believe he has any goal to show for it, he's definitely reemerged as a serious superstar, especially after that run with Retribution. Him and all of his stablemates were the butt of all jokes for a couple of years. So now he was able to come back to NXT and be a force, be a legitimate heel. And so him and Gacy, again, I could see them having some kind of a contest at Vengeance Day between the two. That'd be fun. So Ariana Grace, she cuts a promo in the locker room about how her mother told her to have a vision. Here again, we see Elektra Lopez storming in to the locker room area, demanding to know where Lola Vice is. So Ariana Grace responded that she is full of herself and doesn't know where she is. Backstage, we see Alexis King walking towards the camera, saying how the main event is coming early, and he's the only man worthy of center stage. Now, following that, we see Robert Stone with Von Wagner. Find out that number 87, Von Wagner, returns to his old stomping grounds at UCF. Now, he's coached by Stone's two sons, two boys were ready to go. They had their hats on, their whistles ready, working on speed and agility drills on the field with Von Wagner, preparing him for his shot at this Heritage Cup and Noam Dar. This was a good segment. You know, there was on some of the equipment, Noam Dar's face was attached to it, and Von Wagner was taking it right down to the ground. So this was a fun bit here, lighthearted comedy. And again, we're going to get that matchup of Von Wagner going one-on-one with Noam Dar in the very near future. I don't know if it's officially set because I didn't see it advertised for next week's show of NXT. And perhaps it's on the Vengeance Day card. I mean, there's a lot of potential matches that could take place at Vengeance Day. But again, these types of events, these PLEs are typically 6 matches maximum. So we already know 3. Well, I think there's 4 or 5 actually officially scheduled, but we know there's going to be a men's championship match, a women's championship match. Of course, we're going to have the finals of that Dusty Classic. I know there's a 6-person match between the family and OTM, which we'll get to a little bit later in the show. So, you know, it's adding up quite a bit here. And then you factor in this Heritage Cup match and potentially a few others. So we'll see what happens with that, but it's definitely soon to come in the near future. Now, following this segment here, we had Lexis King going one-on-one with Trey Bearhill. This is the second consecutive week Trey Bearhill had a match on NXT. This match was pretty brief, to be honest. Lexis King made quick work of Bearhill, hitting his coronation for the victory. And so Lexis King continues that momentum, forging forward with his character and his presentation he's had. Yeah, it's been probably closer to the better part of 2.5 to 3 months now with NXT. And what a difference. You know, it's been day and night from how he was presented as Brian Pillman Jr. on AEW for the last 2.5 years. So good for him, honestly. I know it's going to take some time to get used to his character for him to truly get acclimated. But hey, that's why he returned, or better yet, signed with WWE, but going immediately to NXT to really come into his own, to be fair to him. And hopefully, you know, for his sake, one day he'll be on his way to Raw or SmackDown. We might be talking a year and a half from now at least, but that's okay. And I think he's all right with that too. Just really get used to this character and maybe, you know, grab a championship here or there and, you know, a North American championship maybe sometime down the road. Maybe he dethrones Obafemi no time soon because I'm liking what I'm seeing from Obafemi. He's only been champion 2 weeks, and I think he's going to have a great rematch with Dragon Lee. Yeah, that's also at Vengeance Day. I was just ringing off all those Vengeance Day matches. Yet again, that's another title opportunity that we're going to see at that show. So yeah, I think that card might pretty much be set and squared away. But nonetheless, that's going to be a good show. And so we'll see what's we'll see what's in store for Lexis King. Though I do like what I'm seeing thus far. So by this point in time, we see backstage, Carmelo Hayes confronts Trick Williams. And he's like, hey, you know what are you stepping in, handling Dragunov's business for him? You know, he's the NXT World Champion. He'll be all right. You know, what's going on here? Why did you feel the need to do that? So, you know, Trick asks Melo in the first place, where have you been, to be quite honest? And Melo says, look, I've been getting ready for our match for the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic semis. I've been, you know, watching some film on LWO and so on, which I don't buy. And so this was just, you know, it's a good segment. But again, as we've seen teased for weeks and months now, that underlying tension and frustration from both sides, more so Trick Williams, but he just handles it better. Whereas Carmelo Hayes, it seems like he's got this level of jealousy. We've known this. You know, this is nothing new because, you know, his friend has surpassed him in the sense of, you know, he thought he was going to keep Trick Williams at bay as just the hype man, you know, get a couple of significant matches. Good for you. Maybe get a couple of wins under your belt. Never expected him to become NXT North American champion. Now getting a shot at the NXT championship. And of course, if they win this match against the LWO, then they're in contention for the NXT tag titles, I believe, right? So we'll see what happens here. Again, they both also have the opportunity, as I said last week, to become Triple Crown champions in NXT. You know, if Melo's able to, win a tag title, and I'm sorry, if if Melo wins the tag title, he becomes Triple Crown champion. But I was thinking about Trick Williams if he also wins the tag title at the very same time, and of course defeating Dragunov, which I personally don't think is going to happen. That they'd have it all figured out there. So that would really be something else. But moving along here, we have Noam Dar and Oro Mensah. They're in the ring for the SuperNova sessions alongside their guest, which is the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament winner, Lola Vice. Now, this was just getting started, and it was then interrupted pretty quick especially after Lola Vice called Elektra Lopez a leech. And she got this contract all on her own, didn't need the help of her at all. So now enter Elektra Lopez. She goes on to say she doesn't think Lola knows who she is, given how she pretends to be all sweet and innocent. She then goes on to say she only got to NXT by shaking her ass on Instagram. And then she proceeds to call her a wannabe MMA fighter. So she had some fighting words for Lola Vice, and they cut deep. Lola was not happy about what was being said here. Elektra then continues and goes on to say they want to go, we should go one-on-one next week. Lola then asks if she knows what she's getting herself into. Lopez says she doesn't want to wait. She wants to burn Vice City to the ground right now. She then makes her way into the ring, spears Lola Vice over the couch. The set we had for SuperNova sessions by Noam Dar. Spears her right over the couch. It was beautiful, really. I was shocked. And, that was pretty much that. So that match is scheduled for next week. It was made official. They showed us the graphic during NXT and everything that we're indeed going to have Elektra Lopez going one-on-one with Lola Vice. And this match should really be something. And I'm so happy for Elektra Lopez. It's time for this girl to shine, man. She's been with NXT for a couple of years. Of course, she was the leading lady for Legado del Fantasma when they were on NXT 2021. Parts of 2022, of course, Santos Escobar, Joaquin Wild, when Cruz del Toro was just Raul Mendoza at first before the name change. So we're going to see what happens here. It should be a good match. I'm really hoping Elektra Lopez comes out with a victory, but I'm not so sure, being that they're going to want to keep Lola Vice hot and keep that momentum going, being that she is the one who holds that contract for the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament, the winner of that tournament. So we'll see, but I think nonetheless, we're going to get a good one between these two ladies. So now here we have a Chase U segment. It was very sad. I feel for Andre Chase, better part of 2+ years having this Chase University, and they're closing up shop, as they would say. There were movers there and packing up everything in his classroom while he's talking to Duke Hudson. And they were trying to pack up his podium. He says, no, not my beloved podium, from all these years. And they pack up the podium. He was totally defeated. And, Duke Hudson tried to, say it's only stuff. And again, taking the trophies and so on. And Andre Chase says he has nothing left. And just very defeated. Again, very, very sad. So he goes on to say, we had a good run. And next week, we officially say our goodbyes. Class dismissed. Lights go off. Andre Chase, Duke Hudson make their way out. So it's unfortunate. All good things come to an end. I'm certainly ready for Chase U to be done, I guess you could say. I mean, I don't know what that means for Andre Chase, the wrestler. I hope for his sake that he's still employed by NXT and that they do have a spot on the roster for him of note. But if this is the end for not only Chase University and potentially Andre Chase, then I wish him the best. I really do. But we'll see what comes of that after the goodbye of Chase U next week on NXT. So following this, we had a singles matchup formerly known as Reggie, as we all got to know in 2021, being by the side of Carmella for a little bit, now known as Scrypts, about the mud, going up against Dragon Lee, the former North American champion. A pretty good match. Watching on for this match was Obafemi, the current NXT North American champion, again, as I said earlier, who's going one-on-one with Dragon Lee at Vengeance Day. That title opportunity rematch. Dragon Lee trying to get his title back. And this match was going. It was pretty good. Suddenly we see the family, as I mentioned earlier. We would see them again make their way out. They had a receipt for OTM after they attacked their leading lady in that Italian restaurant. So mid-match, we see all 6 members of the faction going back and forth, while Scrypts, who of course is part of At the Mud, had the scheduled matchup with Dragon Lee, distracted. And so Dragon Lee ended up getting this victory in the midst of all this chaos. Post-match, though, Obafemi gets on the microphone, tells Dragon Lee that he made his decision and that he will see him at Vengeance Day. So the match was then made official. Of course, on last week's episode, Dragon Lee laid out the challenge for a rematch. And Obafemi said, he's going to decide and see where he stands. We all knew we were going to get this rematch. And so I'm glad that it was made official. And that was pretty much that. So we got a 2-for-1, so to speak. We got, Dragon Lee going up against Obafemi for this title opportunity. And then with these other 6 members that were going at it, as I said a few minutes ago, we're also going to get this match at Vengeance Day as well. We're going to get this Out the Mud versus the family 3-on-3 matchup here. So that should be a lot of fun. So now we're backstage with a pretty upset and defeated Malik Blade and Idris and Nofe, who lost last week to Carmelo and Trick. And they said, look, we made all this gear, this Dusty Rhodes inspired gear, and here we are losing early on in the tournament. Pretty much what's next for us. And this newer lady with NXT, I honestly don't know her name, but she's all about positivity and not looking back on the past and forging forward. Great outlook, don't get me wrong, but they just were not in the mood to hear it. And so she's trying to get them back on their feet. Idris and Nofe was glad that she's happy, but they just can't seem to catch a break, the two of them, which, look, I do feel for them. They are a great tag team, and I wish they really were doing something with them. They're not doing anything with them in singles. Seemingly they're not doing much with them in the tag team division. And so pretty much they need journals to reflect upon, she goes on to say, and she won't take no for an answer. Gives them homework, write 5 things they liked and 5 things they didn't like about their match. And so that was pretty much the gist of this conversation backstage. They're wondering how she was so upbeat and happy when she didn't win her battle royale last week either, that 20-woman battle royale for the #1 contender spot for Lyra Valkyria's NXT championship. But she wouldn't let that hold her back or keep her down. So hey, I applaud her approach. Very good approach to life. So following this, we see Blair Davenport have a one-on-one matchup with Karmen Petrovic. Simply put, Davenport gets the win here. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Karmen Petrovic. I think she's going to be very good going forward. But Blair Davenport, certainly one of the best prospects in NXT right now. Although I don't want to say squandered, but she didn't get the job done after winning that Iron Survivors match in December at NXT Deadline. Unable to defeat Lyra Valkyria at New Year's Evil, but hey, maybe we'll see her in title contention sometime soon again. So again, Blair Davenport keeps momentum on her side with that win. Now, following that, backstage, we had Ridge Holland with Kelly Kincaid, and Ridge Holland was not too happy about Gallus attacking him last week after he defeated Joe Coffey. Mark Coffey and Wolfgang attacked him. Then all 3 of them, got to him. No one came to his aid, and he said, simply put, that's okay. I don't need backup. I don't need friends, essentially. And so I will take on Gallus 3-on-1. Kelly Kincaid said, did I hear correctly that you're going to take on all 3 members of Gallus? And he said, yes, that's exactly what's going to take place. So presumably next week, maybe. I don't believe I saw an official match graphic for that, but could certainly see that taking place. So now for the final match of the night, the NXT champion Ilya Dragunov was ringside for the main event at the commentary table. And here we had Josh Briggs getting this opportunity against the #1 contender for Dragunov's NXT championship, going up against Trick Williams. Now, this was a good one. This was a good match between these two. Josh Briggs, again, he's a little more fierce now. Not only is he a singles competitor, but again, last week, JBL really revved him up and said, look, man, show them what you're made of. Really make a name here in NXT, in WWE. Get after it. Go get yourself some singles gold and be the best version of yourself that you could be. I'm okay with that. I was a little concerned at first because I thought, much like JBL was with Baron Corbin in 2022, I thought we might be seeing a pairing of JBL and Josh Briggs, which I certainly didn't think was necessary. But this interaction backstage, at minimum, I do really appreciate that. I did enjoy that. So the way this match wrapped up, we saw Josh Briggs on the outside hitting Ilya Dragunov. Dragunov then goes to chase after Josh Briggs, getting on the apron, about to make his way into the ring, where out of nowhere we see Carmelo Hayes pull him pretty viciously off of the ringside apron, taking him down. In the meantime, Trick Williams was able to roll up Josh Briggs for the 1-2-3. However, post-match, Briggs clotheslined Trick Williams pretty mightily. You know, it took a page out of JBL's book with a pretty brutal lariat, so to speak, knocking him down. Briggs clearly with a full heel turn here, which again I'm okay with. I think it's pretty necessary. So I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes from here. And Mello, man, as Trick's, celebrating this victory, Carmelo Hayes makes his way into the ring. He has this look of uncertainty on his face, like he wants to do something to Trick, like he wants to turn on him. We've seen this for months now, not just, the backstage back and forth verbally, but these facial expressions that he's been giving Trick, this uncertain, like, do I want to act as if I'm still friends with him, or should I just take him down because I'm envious or I'm jealous of his position in the company? The past 4 months, he's been hotter than ever, caught fire ever since NXT No Mercy, pretty much. What was that, against Dominic Mysterio when he had the couple-day reign as NXT North American champion? So I don't think Mello is feeling that. Mello liked when he was just, again, the hype man for him, not pretty much trying to get on his level. So that was pretty much how that shaped up. Any day now, I would assume. I've been saying this for a while because they've really been putting it off, especially being that Carmelo Hayes is going to be on the main roster sooner or later. I'm pretty sure they're going to bring him up immediately following WrestleMania. Mello has a match this Friday, I believe, a rematch against Austin Theory. That match that was called due to a referee stoppage 2 weeks ago due to the injury they sustained at the same time coming off of that top rope. A nasty landing, namely for Austin Theory, and Mello caught a little bit of that too. So on SmackDown, Mello reminds me of a complete babyface, but when we see him on NXT, he's a bit of a tweener, leaning towards a heel more so. So it's very confusing where they're going to go with it. Will they ever fully turn Mello? I'm not so sure. If he was going to remain on NXT, I'd say absolutely. But if he's going to go to SmackDown, I don't see the point in turning him heel, at least just yet. So we'll see what happens there. But again, he didn't end up doing anything to Trick Williams when he got in the ring. He just had that look as if, I really want to say or do something to him. But nothing took place there. So following that, we had Lexis King showing up backstage with Thea Hale, right? He's trying to basically hit on Thea Hale, I guess you could say. JC Jane in the background. But Chase U member comes to interrupt or save the day for Thea Hale. Thea Hale wants no parts of Lexis King, but is mesmerized by this Riley Osborne. And Osborne wanted to chat with Hale later on. Of course, she agreed and then absolutely lost it once he left. JC Jane says, relax, play it cool. And remember, you're a grown woman. So Lexis King, his attempt did not work out too well, but Riley Osborne, obviously we see Thea Hale is a huge fan of him. So see what happens with that going forward. And this was leading up to what was technically the main event. Of course, I just discussed the main event matchup of the night, but this was the main event, the NXT Women's contract signing for that championship opportunity at Vengeance Day, February 4th. The champion being Lyra Valkyria, and the challenger being Roxanne Perez. Now, before I go forward with this, there was one other video, segment or vignette that we've seen the last couple of weeks from the No Quarter Catch crew. The leader being Drew Gulak, I guess you could say, Charlie Dempsey, and Damon Kemp, and who's the other guy? Miles Bourne, I believe, is the fourth member of that group. So we saw a lot from them. They've been training rigorously. And, we'll see what happens with them. We all know they're talented wrestlers. I don't expect a major push for any of them single-handedly. Again, we know they're all great. And so we'll see what comes of that going forward. Now, back to this women's contract signing. Again, you got to remember, as I said earlier, the new NXT general manager, Ava. She was present with these two in the ring with the contract to get this thing started. And so that's exactly what we got to see. So now Perez wants to get the respect stuff out of the way because they both respect one another. And Lyra then says they've been connected and Roxanne won the title the night of her debut. Perez goes on to say she's had an incredible first year, but it feels familiar to her because her first year was much like the same, a lot of success, which is absolutely true. Roxanne proceeds to say she had to watch Lyra Valkyria rise while she put herself back together to win the title she never should have lost in the first place. And now that she finally has her one-on-one rematch, when she wins, it'll mean all of it will be worth it. And then Valkyria will have to walk the path she's walked over the last year. Valkyria then responded with, she watched Roxanne grow confident, and she's not looking to push her buttons, but she'd had a great run, and now Lyra has replaced her. She wants to bring this new edgy Roxanne who's walked through glass to Vengeance Day. Good, because Roxanne is the last person she has to prove herself to. Now, Perez obviously getting pretty worked up and heated by it. And this is where she threw the nice guy stuff to the side and all that respect stuff she said in the beginning. And Perez says she's real confident and she used to be the same, but she's going to lose. And then the real questions begin. Will she be able to rebuild herself, or will she crumble? Lyra came back and said she's mentally and physically more stable than Roxanne. And after Vengeance Day, she'll definitely take the lead. Now, Ava had to take charge here. Things were getting, again, pretty heated between the two. And says, look, can we just sign this contract, make it official? And ladies, save it for Vengeance Day in a week and a half. In short, that's pretty much what she stated. After that was done, they stood face to face in front of the table. They got in each other's face and had a brief stare down. You could feel the tension. Valkyria then leaves the ring, stares down Perez. And then, of course, Lyra Valkyria's stalker of sorts the past month and change, Tatum Paxley, showed up from what looked to be, she was under the table. So Tatum Paxley was under the table, picks up Roxanne and put her through the table pretty viciously. So she got some airtime, and then she made her way down just as quickly, right through that table. Lyra turned around, shocked and said, what are you doing? Rushed in the ring, pretty much yelled at Tatum Paxley, then went to check on Roxanne Perez, even though they had an exchange of words. She wants her opponent to be fully healthy for that match at Vengeance Day. And, again, she asked Tatum Paxley, what's wrong with you? Paxley was upset, borderline tears in the ring, saying, sorry, I didn't mean, any harm. I was just trying to help the situation. And I don't think she helped much. So now Roxanne Perez is pissed off. Lyra Valkyria is unhappy with her, and Tatum Paxley is uncertain. And so that leaves me with a couple of questions. Going into Vengeance Day, is Tatum Paxley going to be the one who costs Lyra Valkyria her NXT Women's Championship, whether it be on purpose or not? Does she again try to come after Roxanne Perez, similar to like we saw here at the contract signing, and it goes wrong? Or is she at the point where she thinks that Lyra doesn't appreciate her friendship or her being there for her, and actually turns on Lyra completely, again, costing her the match, giving Roxanne the win? At this point, Roxanne is basically becoming a heel, slowly but surely, much like Josh Briggs in their own right. And Roxanne wouldn't mind if Tatum Paxley cost Lyra the match. Roxanne just wants this title back by any means necessary. So we'll see what happens. I would not be surprised to see Tatum Paxley involved in this championship matchup in some capacity, even if it's really brief. And that was pretty much NXT. And that was the show in itself. One question going into the Royal Rumble, especially this weekend, is it's been a couple of weeks since we've seen her alongside Fallon Henley, ever since she lost that match to Fallon Henley, having to help her be her assistant and stuff on the farm. But Tiffany Stratton, where's Tiffany Stratton been? We did not see her in that 20-woman battle royale last week. Means to me that the main roster has big plans for her. Now, much like I think about possibly a Roxanne and so on, could we see Tiffany Stratton immediately following WrestleMania, or if there's a draft in the spring? I think at latest we see Tiffany Stratton on Raw or SmackDown, let's say early May, right? But we could see Tiffany Stratton as early as this Saturday night. I could see Tiffany Stratton in the Women's Royal Rumble. I think she'd do a great job. Get a couple eliminations. Of course, I don't think she would win it. But I think Tiffany Stratton could really show herself to those that have not been watching NXT the last couple of years, namely the past 6 to 8 months. Tiffany Stratton has done a fantastic job on NXT, really proving, especially in those matches against Becky Lynch, that she can hang with the best of them. So I'm a believer in Tiffany Stratton 1000%. And so Tiffany Stratton, even if she's not brought up to the main roster till April or May, I think we should all get a nice preview of her potentially this Saturday at the Royal Rumble. But that's all I got for you here, folks. Thank you for tuning in to my NXT review. Again, this is the January 23rd episode. I appreciate you guys greatly. If you're not already, please subscribe here to me on YouTube. And of course, social media at Turnbuckle Topics. That's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. Even if you have a Snapchat, I'm all over. I'm all over. So go ahead and follow me there. If you have any questions in the comments section or DM me, feel free. I always am sure to respond to you guys. So again, thank you for tuning into the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I am your host, Pat Deneen, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.